Snow now, we're going to get a backlash tomorrow, which will favor additional accumulations out here in the Berkshires and up through the mountains of Vermont and New Hampshire. They could get quite a lot tomorrow. And bursts of snow, so we won't be out of the woods. We'll have ground blizzard-like conditions during tomorrow. And again, we have to point out there probably will be some power outages in parts of the region. So that's it for now. I'll be back with more information.
March 13th, 1993. This is the beginning of the blizzard of 93. These pictures right now are about 4:15 in the afternoon. The temperature is 18 degrees. And as you can see, it's starting to snow fairly hard. Up to this point, we've only got about 2 inches of snow on the ground. This has been a funny winter. At the end of January, we had very little snow on the ground. And since the end of January, in the next 5 weeks, we've had over 2 feet of snow. And as you can see, they're predicting 20 to 30 inches out of this snowfall.
Miles per hour, and out in Chatham in the last hour, about 75 to 80 mile per hour winds. Powerful storm system, that's for sure. Here it is. It's off the Virginia coast, going to take a track near or slightly east of Boston. So quite a storm. Here's your forecast, the way I see it. The rest of tonight, the snow, the sleet, and the rain in the area will gradually subside. And where it's snowing now just north of Boston may mix with or turn to sleet. Where it's sleeting, it may briefly turn.
This is the next morning, March 14th. It's a Sunday morning, and the storm now is pretty much wound down. And these are apple trees that are in my backyard. Now these apple trees are about 12 feet high, so this gives you an idea of how much snow has fallen in the past 6 weeks. By the way, my name is Gary Cutter. I live on Mill Street in Deering, New Hampshire, right on the Hillsborough-Deering line, and I'll really introduce myself a little later on in the video. You can see the snow is pretty much up, it's well up out of those trees. How much snow we've really got, I don't know. I haven't measured it yet, but I'm going to get a measurement here in a minute. And here's a yardstick that I've taken a measurement, which I felt was fair, because the snow has blown around some. And we're talking about 22 inches of snow. And that's a big snowstorm in this part of the country. Here's a picture of my old Ford, 1985 Ford. And of course some of the snow is blown off from the wind, but you can see it's piled right up there on the hood. Just an incredible snowstorm. Now I've just got done shoveling my path, and this is how things look right now. What I'm showing you right now is I'm looking out my garage window. Of course, the snowbank is on the left, but the snow there on the right, or in the middle of the screen, is dead even with my window. That's a lot of snow. This is the scene of the Maplehurst Inn in the town of Antrim. This is the town that I grew up in. You can see it's quite a snowbank. They usually get maybe 2 or 3 more inches than they do over there in Deering, New Hampshire. Down street in the town of Antrim, across the street, this is the sign that will tell you where to bear right to go to Hillsborough, New Hampshire. And right there is the new bank in the town of Antrim. That's been there now several years. That's the T-Bird there on the right. And the Baptist Church, a landmark in the town of Antrim. This is a look at the south end of the inn with the Presbyterian Church where the town clock is. That is also another landmark in Antrim, New Hampshire. This is a piece of the highway equipment. I'm sure the guys are in the coffee shop having a coffee. They know they've been plowing all night long. This is the road into the new post office in the town of Antrim. You can just see how the snow has just drifted in here on the top of this hill. The wind is now picking up. Quite a snowstorm.
I don't know how much we got.
Here's Hop Sizemore shoveling out his driveway. And you can see the snowbanks are piled right up there.
Boy, it's a doozy. I don't know how much we got, Gary. Probably 10 or 20 inches, huh?
I measured this morning what I felt was fair, and I got about 21.5, 21.75.
Yeah, about right.
But it'll vary in different areas.
Yeah.
But it's quite a storm.
Sure is. Good.
This is a Sylvania plant, Hillsborough, New Hampshire. And the wind is really blowing here. Getting the backlash from this storm right now. They said we'd have high winds, and we sure have them. But look at the snowbanks here. Look at the snowbanks. Of course, this snow is plowed up in the parking lot, but nevertheless, those are high tension lines right there. And you can see how this snow is just piled right up, way up onto them. There's the barn. They store a lot of old records and machinery in. Snowbanks in front of the Deering Community Church in Deering, New Hampshire. And I'm going to tell you, the wind is really picking up here now. The backlash of this storm, as I said before. This is downtown Hillsborough, New Hampshire. It's at noontime, and you can see there's very little traffic here for a Sunday. Everybody has just been bogged right in. This is the Deering town crew plowing the Long Woods Road. Peter Beards at the helm of the first plow. They're pushing back the snow just in case we get another one of these things.
How long you been road agent here?
10 years. You've never seen nothing like this in 10 years.
I haven't. Never have. Motorbike else wouldn't see where you was going.
You must have worked all night long.
Been working since time yesterday.
How much snow you think we got?
I think around 24 inches.
Yeah, close to it.
Blowing parallel most of the time, so it added up in the corners and not so much on the flats.
Put a dent in the old budget, won't it?
Now, back in the pocketbook, I'm
We'll see you later.
Okay.
My name is Gary Cutter, and I'm the one that's put this video together. Well, now that the blizzard of 1993 is history, I thought it'd be kind of neat to go back into the past and look at some snow scenes of yesteryear. Now, Bob Flanders and Merle Avon Jr. of Antrim, New Hampshire, have loaned us these pictures to look at. Now, these photographs were taken in Antrim, New Hampshire. That's where I grew up. In fact, my father was postmaster there for 35 years. So I got quite a kick out of looking at these photos, and I think you... This is the Antrim Baptist Church. Now, these following snow scenes were taken in 1969. Now you're looking at the Presbyterian church in the middle of the town. The building just in front of it now sits the bank in Antrim, New Hampshire. And you'll notice the Texaco station to the left, and that is now the T-Bird. The Maplehurst Inn, which has been a landmark in the town of Antrim for a good many years. I don't know when it was built, but it's been there ever since I can remember. This home belongs to Olga Courier, and this homestead is located on the Pierce Lake Road in Antrim, New Hampshire. This home here once belonged to Bob Flanders. Bob is the one that loaned us these pictures. He's now moved up to what they call Antrim Center. Of course, they called that years ago. You two can see we had a substantial snowfall back in 1969. Bob married a girl from Antrim by the name of Alice May Hill, and this is their daughter, Debbie, by the Antrim Town Hall. This is a scene of the fields by Elmer Merrill's farm. His son, Smokey, as he's known to most people, but his actual name is Arthur. They held a pageant many years ago in this field. There's kind of an interesting story to this photo. This is a road up to the old John and Hattie Brown farm. Well, John passed away first, and Hattie lived alone up there for a good many years. In this particular storm, the town of Antrim did not have the equipment to plow the road to get to Hattie. So they hired Smitty Harriman with a bulldozer, and he bulldozed the road out, and they got Hattie, and the town put her up in the Maplehurst Inn for the rest of the winter. And as the story goes, she kind of hated to leave. What you're looking at now is a pretty interesting photograph. This is the main street of Antrim, New Hampshire many years ago. The barn there on the right-hand side is where the town hall sits today. And another thing that's a little unusual is right in back of the barn there, that block looks pretty much the same. In my day, it was the old butcher block. Walt Butcher had a store in there. He went to Florida in the wintertime and came back in the spring, and seemed to always have some pretty interesting things for us kids to look at in the window. When Walt came back, we knew it was spring. First National had a store there at one time. Wayne Olson owned that building at one time. And now it's a restaurant. Back in those days, they had no plows. Everything was a roller, called it a snow roller, that was drawn by horses. This is another old shot of Main Street. The old building there to the left is still there. At one time there was a telegraph office in there. There was a carpenter shop in there run by a Barrett. And Bud Proctor had a restaurant in there, a store in there one time, and you could buy hot dogs and hamburgers. Various people have had business in there. Just up a little ways, you'll see a store that's no longer there. And my grandfather owned that. He was a butcher. James Morris Scudder. They called him J.M. This is a picture looking up Summer Street many years ago. The building on the left is the old telephone office. I think I said left. The building on the right is the old telephone office, and the one on the left no longer stands there. It got burnt many years ago, but I understand there was a barber shop in there. That road right now is the one at Summer Street. At the top of the hill there is where the school sits today. This picture here, we're looking down South Main Street. The building on the right is Morris Poor's Sawmill, where the Lower Goodell Company parking lot sits today. And the building that you see just in back of that is no longer there. Down there at the foot of the hill is the old bridge. The road kind of went around to the right slightly there. They straightened that out many years ago. I can remember when they did it. This is a photo of Jameson Avenue in 1910. Another photo of Summer Street. Of course, horses years ago played the major role in getting around. This is a team of horses that was owned by Rob Jameson. And I'm not sure, but this is probably the road up to the Jameson farm. Bernie owned it for a while, and now I think there's a fellow by the name of Green that owns it. It's called the Highlands. Well, Rob Jameson was a great friend of my grandfather's. They fished a lot together, and my grandmother told me that they'd take a horse and leave Antrim and go into Center Pond and started to go ice fishing. Now, I don't know how long it took them, but it's a long ways from Antrim, New Hampshire to Center Pond and started. And I'm sure they had something to keep them warm, and I don't think it was hot coffee. This is a picture of Malcolm French Sr. And he was a mail carrier in the town of Antrim, and the horse's name was Rosie O'Grady. Those of you watching the video today, a lot of you would remember Mally French. Well, this is Mally's dad. His name was also Malcolm. This is a picture of the old snow roller. Main Street. This is another picture of the old snow roller in front of the Grange Hall. This is the old sidewalk plow that they had many years ago, pulled by horses, usually by one horse. It is now stored up to the Merrill farm in Antrim, New Hampshire, and Smokey Merrill was very kind to pull this out for us so we could get a picture, and we're going to chat with Smokey here a few minutes. Well, this must bring back a few old memories to you, Smokey.
Well, quite a few. The first of my riding on it, when my father was plowing sidewalks back in the early 30s, they used to bundle me up when I was only 6 or 7 years old.
Is that right?
Take me down street, leave me at Uncle George's while Father plowed the sidewalks. Then the last of the plow being used, I drove it, I believe, the last one to use it, to plow the sidewalks here in town.
Do you remember about what year that might have been, Smokey?
Well, early mid-40s, somewhere.
Yeah. Can you recall any of the big storms that you, when you were...
Well, the biggest one and the worst one to handle was 1933, the 15th of April, when we had 3 feet of wet, blue snow.
Oh, that's what the season they talked of, the blue snow.
That's the one.
And you could actually see the snow blue?
Oh, it was just as blue as the sky.
Huh.
There's quite an article in Deering Town History that dates that as the blue snow, New Hampshire's blue snow.
Huh. How long did it take them to plow the sidewalks with the...
Oh, it was usually about 2 hours of actually plowing, 2 hours and a half.
Oh, then they just plowed more or less the main street and a little bit more then?
Well, they plowed all the way from North Main Street, Henry Hurlin's place, clear down through to what we know as the Johnman Hall, and Summer Street was plowed. Highland Avenue we plowed, and West Street was plowed.
Oh, that's good.
Concord Street was plowed the first part of the year, and then after the snow got too deep, why they kind of abandoned the lower end of it.
Huh.
They didn't plow the little short sidewalk there in front of the Baptist church that I know of. I don't remember there ever plowing that.
Well, Smokey, thanks an awful lot.
Well, you're quite welcome.
You said the town did have 2 of these, huh?
Yeah.
You got some... Wait a minute, have you got some idea how old this plow might be?
Oh, Corey. It probably goes back into the 20s somewhere.
Yeah.
I've got an old catalog up to the house that states where these were. I don't know if it's where they was built, but they were sold out of Boston.
I take it that steering wheel, Smokey, there, that control the wing here on the right.
That's what controls the wing.
Yeah.
To pull it out. You just undogged it down there, and then the snow folded it right back in
Huh.
by itself. Pressure of the snow.
Boy, that must have been a cold, hard ride then.
Oh, it was cold. You got one lever over there that raised the nose of the plow. When you wasn't actually plowing the sidewalk, you could raise it up for transport, so that it went on runners like a sled.
Huh. And what was that other handle there for?
This one?
Mm-hmm.
This is your wing control.
Oh, I see.
The hoist up and down for your wing.
Oh, they did have some elevation there
Yeah,
then.
a little. Very, very little. It was maybe 6 inches at the most.
Huh.
But you could pick it, enough to pick it up and not be dragging it.
We're now going to go from horses to gasoline engines. Now this may surprise a few people, but this is an old snowmobile. This snowmobile was owned by Isaac Barrett of Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Now this is a postcard, and this postcard was sent to Warren Wheeler in Antrim, New Hampshire back in 1924. For those of you that might be interested, the postage on this postcard was 1 cent. Now I'm sure that this snowmobile was made either from a Model A or a Model T Ford by the looks of things. You can actually see the skis out in front, and I'm sure this is where the idea came for our modern day snow machines. This photo here is of an old cleat tractor. This is what they used to plow the roads with way back. Now this is the only picture that I could find of this old tractor. Now I've been told that the first tractor in town had the plows were made out of wood. This one here is metal. And the person in the lower left is Jack Gould. Just above Jack is Ernest McClure, and to the right is Kenny Hilton. Now these fellas sure spent many a cold night in that tractor. I know one of the stories is that up the Bill Boyce Road, they were always glad to go up the Bill Boyce Road. It was a long, cold ride, but Bill always had plenty of hard cider for him. That made the trip a lot easier. This is Mally French's 1937 Dodge. Mally did a lot of plowing for the town of Antrim back in those old days. One other thing I want to mention too, the picture there of the old Caterpillar tractor, that was called Old Molly. And I mentioned that they enjoyed going up the Bill Boyce Road. Well, for some of you that may be watching this video, the Bill Boyce Road is the Salmon Brook Road. And Bill Boyce and his wife Dora lived at the end of the road. The dwelling no longer is there. It burnt many years ago. This is another picture of Mally French's 37 Dodge. Mally liked his Dodges. He also had a 1947 Dodge after this, as I understand. We're going to chat here a few minutes with Bill Lang, and Bill Lang bought the body of that 1937 Dodge that Mally French had. Well, looking back through Bill's books, we're beginning to think now that perhaps this was the body of a 1936 Bill. Is that right?
I guess, but it looks at the picture.
What year did you buy this off in Well, you didn't buy it off on Malley. You bought it off in Junior Avon. Is that right?
Right.
And what year did you buy it off in Junior?
Oh, let's see. About 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Back up.
And what was that truck? What do you expect that truck sold for at that time, Bill?
Somewhere around, probably around, I'd guess, in that $2,000 probably.
Around 2,000. And this is kind of a personal question, Bill, but what the heck did you pay for that?
Well, I only paid about $150 for the body.
Yeah.
And then a little later, I did buy the rest of the truck, and I gave him another $100. So I ended up buying the whole truck, but it was a 47 when I bought what I bought, though.
Yeah. And you restored it.
And I started to restore it, but I ran out of money, and so I sold it.
So, who'd you sell it to, Bill?
A fellow by the name of Hickey up in, he lived on the county road in Deering, but he moved to Goshen.
Yeah.
And I don't know where it is now, and he took the truck with him.
If that truck was in mint condition, completely restored today, what do you think it'd be worth?
Probably $2,000 to $3,000.
Isn't that something, huh?
Yeah.
Now, I know you've plowed a lot of snow for the town of Antrim. And I know I've got some pictures here of Old Molly, and I know you've had a good many nights on Old Molly, and it must have been cold.
It sure was cold. You get on the back of that tractor and you start out, and you get off and walk when you could, but when you're running your wings, you get a little warm. But when you're going from one place to the other, like walking from, as we call it, walking from Liberty Farm corner to Salmon Brook Road, where you get off and walk behind you to keep from freezing to death.
Is that right?
And sometimes you'd even run a little bit. And try to freeze to death, then you get up to Salmon Brook Road and plow in and go in and have a nice breakfast or supper or whatever it was when you got there. They were awful good to you.
I guess Bill Boyce and his wife Dora treated you all pretty well, right?
They was awful good to you. Well, there wasn't only them places, other places you go to, and they were just the same way. It was back in them days, people was friendly to you and appreciated you coming around. Now they don't.
Can you remember some of the other places that you might have been to, their names? Or
oh,
anything?
God, we used to stop at the old Roscoe Whitney place. If we went by there, we used to go down in what used to be Anderson's, down in the old Naser place.
Yeah.
And Craig's would sometimes stop have you in, and various places back in them days. You'd go in and have a cup of coffee and a sandwich or something you wanted, or whatever you wanted, you know.
You must have plowed all night long.
Oh, you went from, some days you'd be gone 12, 14 hours before you got back to town, and you'd come in and get something to eat and go again.
Huh. And you was telling me, because we were talking before, that the heat in that old Molly was nothing but a lantern.
Nothing but an old kerosene lantern. Archie Perkins had downside him to keep his fingers warm enough to run the levers with. Quite a rig, I'll tell you.
How long have you plowed snow in the town of Antrim?
Me, I've been plowing snow since about 1942.
Well,
either the town or for myself, one or the other.
Is that right?
Yeah.
God, that's a long time.
Yeah, too long some days there, Gary.
Well, Bill, I want to thank you an awful lot.
Well, that's all right. Hey, if I can answer any more questions, I'd try to, but I don't always know the answer.
Well, it sure
I
been...
got some, if I can get a hold of my brother John, I got some pictures. Sometime I'll show them to you, Gary, whether you put them on that or not, you know.
Well, maybe we'll work on another video, but I certainly appreciate this interview with you.
Well, I don't know.
Well, we're speaking of trucks. This is the first truck the town of Antrim ever owned. Before that, the road agents either owned the trucks themselves, or the road agents hired somebody in the area that did have a truck to plow for. Now, this is a picture of Merle Avon Sr. with the first truck, as I said, the town of Antrim ever owned in 1972. Now, it appears to look like a Dodge, but I'll find out before this video is over exactly what this truck was. Merle was a very popular road agent in the town of Antrim. As I said, Merle was a very popular road agent, and the selectman in the town of Antrim, when he retired, presented him with this plaque. It says 24 years of service, but actually Merle told us that it was 25 years. There are other popular road agents in the town of Antrim. Archie Perkins is one of them. And Elmer Merrill was another one that I can remember. This is another old picture of the snow roller. Now this snow roller was restored here a number of years. This tractor here, this color, this is approximately the same model as old Molly, the old crawler tractor that pushed the snow years ago in Antrim, New Hampshire, that you've seen a few pictures of. Remember Bill Lang saying how cold it was in this old tractor, and the only way they kept warm was with a kerosene lantern? Well, this is the inside of this tractor, and you can see it's pretty simple, and I would imagine it would be pretty cold. This is a seat. This Caterpillar tractor here, I think, is about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years newer than old Molly was. We're going to take a few minutes here at Kemp's Museum in Hillsborough, New Hampshire, and show you some of the old snow removal equipment that they had years ago. Look at the size of the old V plow on this truck. I'll bet in its day it pushed a lot of snow. I had hoped Dick Kemp would have been here with me this morning. I'd spoken with him on the telephone the night before, but he was tied up, and he'd be able to tell you how old these trucks were and what the original price was of them back then, and it would have been pretty interesting. But this will give you some idea of the snow equipment that they had in the late 30s and early 40s. If you have a chance to stop in and visit with Dick Kemp, the Mack Museum is located in Hillsborough, New Hampshire, right on the Kentucky River. This is the inside of the cab in one of these old trucks. By the looks of those levers, they must have had hydraulics of some kind in here. But these cabs are pretty crude. This whole snow removal equipment has always fascinated me. We're going to wind this video up talking with Eb Chamberlain, Sr. of Antrim, New Hampshire. Eb played the major role in restoring this snow roller. Eb, it's nice to have you with me here today. This is
glad to be here.
This is quite an antique you got here.
Well, I would say it's about the last one in the country.
Is that right?
I wouldn't be surprised.
We're shooting this video here, what is it, January 9th, 1995. And up to this point, Eb, we haven't had a lot of snow.
Oh, I wouldn't say so. You could make a snowman here if you rounded up the snow, but that's about it.
What is it, about maybe 2 inches at the most?
Not at the most, yeah.
And there's a lot of bare ground showing.
Oh, yeah.
But talking with you and your wife, you were telling me that you're 80 what? 83 years old.
Yeah.
Jesus, I hope I look as good as you do when I'm 83 years old, Ed. But you have run into seasons like this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In late years, but years ago when I was a kid, nothing to get 3 feet was storm.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, look at Ed. I'll get back of that camera, and perhaps you can tell us how this all came about.
Okay.
Yep, so I guess we're ready to hear how this all came about.
Well, it was in 76, I believe, 1976, when the Chamber of Commerce wanted to know if I could build them a roller. They were commemorating in the olden times. So I told them I thought I could. Well, I tried to find one so to get an idea, more of an idea of what it was all about. And I couldn't find one, so I said, well, hell, it must be the old one is around the town somewhere. Well, Elmer Merrill had been the road agent so long, I figured it must be up around his house. So I went up and way out in the pasture, I found it all rotted down. That's where I got the shafts that go through the barrels and the hoops that go around it to hold it together. So I took those back, and the reason that this built like it is with 2 barrels is on account of turning around in a road. Most roads in those days were about 21 feet wide. Well, with the 2 barrels as they are, the horses could go right back alongside of themselves and it would spin right around right in the middle of the road, which made it a lot easier getting around.
I never even thought of that, yeah.
Well, that's the reason for that. And then, of course, the platform on top was for the driver to sit up here, and the fellows that were with him would throw their lunch buckets and their jackets and things on top. Now, that's about the way that was run. But the barrels had to be so high on account of the snow. Because if you had a low roller and you had that much snow, it would just pull right along. And when it's heavy like this, it rolls the snow down. That makes it a lot of fun in the wintertime when you want to go sliding. I remember we used to start up at the Grange Hall in Antrim with a double runner with about 6 or 8 kids on it, and we could slide pretty near into town, over a mile and a half.
You didn't have the cars today, Ed, like you got now.
We didn't have any cars running at that time. Well, let's go around the end here, and I'll show you what the end looks like.
Okay, Ed.
Maybe you wonder where I got those big ends to put on this thing. Well, they're reels that were made to wind cable on. We got them up in Warner. And We just took the ends off the cables and the barrels, and that's what we use for the end pieces. They're not made out of oak like the rest of it is. All the rest of this is made out of oak.
Now, Andy Lane donated the lumber on this, you was telling me, Eb?
Andy Lane got it all. I was getting the Chamber of Commerce paid for some
Paid
of it.
for it, yeah?
He probably got it for him at cost.
Yeah.
And then, plus there's a lot of lag bolts and nails and stuff like that. And I put most of the labor in. I made the barrels alone. And then when I got to putting these braces or frame around it, I just couldn't handle them alone. So Tip Holt helped me on those. And I think we did a pretty good job. Kind of too bad to let it sit around somewhere and rot.
I know.
Because I think this is probably one of the last ones in the country.
Boy, it's quite a thing. And how long did it take you to put this together, Eb?
Well, I was working nights over at the New Hampshire Ball Bearing, so I'd get up about 8:30 in the morning and work probably 5 hours. And it probably took me 3 weeks to build it.
Boy, you did. I thought it would probably take you longer than that.
Well, I think it was about 3 weeks.
And of course, Andy and Tip, they've gone beyond now.
Yep, I'm the only one left.
Well, I hope you last as long as this snow roller does, Eb.
Well, I don't know. The way it's going, I'll last longer. You can't sit out in the woods any too long or it'll rot down.
Yeah. Well, thanks an awful lot, Eb. This has been very, very interesting.
Well, I'm glad that people might remember me on this roller, because on the inside of one of these heads, I've got it stamped on a piece of aluminum, the date it was built and who it was built by. So years from now, when it rots down, somebody might find it and remember me again.
That's quite a way to end this video.